He was handsome, educated, polite, the kind of man you'd trust to carry your groceries or fix your tire on the side of the road. Ted Bundy wasn't just a killer. He was a master of disguise, charming enough to get close, cold enough to strike, and smart enough to vanish without a trace. In the 1970s, the United States watched in horror as a series of young women disappeared from college campuses. No witnesses, no leads, just silence. By the time the nation realized what they were dealing with, it was already too late. This is not just the story of a murderer. It's the story of how evil can hide in plain sight. You're watching Sleepless Documentaries, and tonight we begin a journey through the darkest minds in American history. If you're brave enough to keep going, hit that subscribe button, like the video, and comment below what made Ted Bundy so dangerous, his charm, his intelligence, or something even darker. Now, keep the lights on. Before the nation knew his name, before the terror began, Theodore Robert Bundy was just another boy growing up in post-war America. Born on November 24, 1946, in a Vermont home for unwed mothers, his very birth was wrapped in secrecy. His mother, Eleanor Louise Cowell, brought him to Philadelphia and raised him as her brother while her parents pretended to be his. Bundy wouldn't discover the truth until years later, that the people he called Mom and Dad were actually his grandparents. That his real father's identity was uncertain, possibly non-existent. A lie that would fracture his identity forever. As a boy, Ted was quiet, polite, withdrawn. But even in his early years, the cracks were there. He was fascinated with knives. Neighbors recalled him sneaking around with a blank, cold stare. One aunt claimed she awoke to find toddler Ted standing by her bed, grinning, surrounded by knives from the kitchen. But Bundy grew up, and he learned to blend in. He was smart, clean-cut, he got good grades, teachers liked him, his smile disarmed people, his voice was soft, measured. And yet, beneath the polished surface, the monster was growing. In college, Ted studied psychology. He learned what made people tick, what made them trust, what made them vulnerable. He also fell in love. Her name was Diane Edwards, intelligent, wealthy, elegant. Everything he wanted. But when she broke up with him, Bundy was shattered. Not just heartbroken, betrayed. The rejection unlocked something inside him, something that would never be locked away again. From that moment forward, his victims began to look eerily familiar. Brunette, parted hair, young, educated. Just like Diane, Bundy would charm them, smile, ask for help, and when they got close enough, he struck. Ted Bundy didn't wear a mask to hide a monster. He was the mask, and soon the killings would begin. It started in the Pacific Northwest, a quiet, rainy corner of the country, Washington, Oregon, Utah, where young women began disappearing without a sound. In January 1974, Bundy claimed his first known victim, 21-year-old Linda Ann Healy. She vanished from her basement bedroom in Seattle. The only trace? A neatly made bed, blood on the pillow, and silence. Then came Donna Manson, Susan Rancourt, Roberta Parks, Brenda Ball, Jorgen Hawkins. All young, all brunette, all gone. The pattern was clear, at least to those who were paying attention. The victims looked alike. They vanished near college campuses, and no one ever heard them scream. Bundy didn't chase his victims, he lured them. Wearing a fake cast or walking on crutches, he'd approach women in parking lots and libraries, asking for help loading books or carrying something to his car. And when they leaned in to help, he struck, fast, efficient, ruthless. He didn't just kill, he controlled, he manipulated, and he perfected his method with terrifying precision. In broad daylight, he abducted two women, Janice Ott and Denise Naslund, just hours apart from a crowded beach at Lake Sammamish. Witnesses saw a man named Ted, but no one stopped him. It wasn't just murder, it was theater. Bundy wanted to be seen, and still get away. Police were overwhelmed, leads were scarce, panic spread across campuses. Mothers warned daughters, students carried pepper spray, but Ted Bundy was always one step ahead. He moved between states. He changed his appearance. He kept trophies, and each time he vanished, another woman did too. The monster had arrived, and he wasn't done yet. Ted Bundy wasn't just a killer, he was a chameleon. He changed his appearance constantly, growing a mustache, cutting his hair, wearing glasses. One week, he was a law student. The next, a ski instructor, always blending in, always hiding in plain sight. While investigators were chasing shadows, Bundy was studying them. He followed news reports, tracked police patterns, watched how the media reacted. He wanted to understand the system, so he could beat it. And he nearly did. Bundy applied to law school and sat in on lectures about criminal justice, even as he continued to murder. He didn't just want to escape capture. He wanted to prove he was smarter than everyone in the room. He inserted himself into the investigation, offering theories, pretending to care. All the while, he was feeding off the chaos he created. He was a man who led two lives, one smiling and social, the other cold and calculating. He kept trophies from his victims, jewelry, photographs, even body parts. These weren't just souvenirs. They were symbols of control. Control was everything to Ted Bundy. The planning, the deception, the ability to take life and feel nothing. Psychologists would later describe him as a textbook psychopath. No empathy, no remorse, no conscience. But what made him truly terrifying was how normal he seemed. He didn't look like a monster. He didn't act like one, until it was too late. By 1975, the walls were closing in. Ted Bundy had crossed state lines, leaving a trail of fear from Washington to Utah to Colorado. But this time, he slipped up. A routine traffic stop in Salt Lake City changed everything. Inside his car, a ski mask, rope, handcuffs, a crowbar, a murder kit hidden in plain sight. Bundy was arrested, but even behind bars, he didn't panic. He plotted. With no concrete evidence linking him to murder, police struggled to build a case. Bundy used the time to charm his way through interrogations, calm, confident, almost amused. But then came the match, a bite mark on a victim's body. Bundy's dental impressions were a perfect fit. Charged with murder, he was transferred to Colorado, and that's when the story took a darker, more unbelievable turn. He escaped. The first time, he jumped out of a second-story courthouse window, injured but free. Caught again after 6 days. The second escape? Even more daring. He sawed a hole through the ceiling of his jail cell and climbed into the jailer's apartment. By the time guards noticed, Bundy was long gone. He traveled over 1,000 miles, all the way to Florida, and once again, the murders began. In January 1978, he broke into the Chi Omega sorority house at Florida State University. Within minutes, he bludgeoned and strangled 2 women and brutally attacked 2 others. Hours later, he struck again. It was his most vicious spree yet, uncontrolled, impulsive, and rage-fueled. But time was running out. His ego was growing, but so was the dragnet. In February, Bundy was finally caught, driving a stolen car with stolen plates. The officer who arrested him had no idea he had just ended one of the most terrifying manhunts in American history. Bundy looked up, smiled, and said, "I wish you had killed me." In 1979, America tuned in for something it had never seen before, a murder trial broadcast live on national television. At the center of it all stood Ted Bundy, not as the accused, but as the lead attorney in his own defense. He had studied the law. Now he was using it as his stage. Bundy relished the spotlight. He smiled for the cameras, flirted with reporters, and cross-examined witnesses with chilling confidence. To some, he was magnetic. To others, pure evil in a suit. But behind the theatrics, the evidence was damning. The prosecution presented physical evidence, witness testimony, and the critical bite mark analysis that matched Bundy's teeth to the wounds on Lisa Levy, one of the Chi Omega victims. Jurors watched in silence as graphic photos were shown. Survivors told their stories, and slowly the mask began to crack. Bundy's charm couldn't erase the horror of his crimes. After weeks of testimony, the jury deliberated for less than 7 hours. The verdict, guilty on all counts. As the judge read the sentence, death by electric chair, Bundy stood expressionless. And then, with a smirk, he turned to the cameras. The judge said it best. "It is a tragedy for this court to see such a total waste of humanity. You'd have made a good lawyer. I'd have loved to have you practice in front of me. But you went another way, partner." It was the end of the trial, but not the end of Bundy's story. Because even from death row, Ted Bundy wasn't finished manipulating the world around him. Death row at Florida State Prison became Ted Bundy's final stage. But even with a death sentence looming, Bundy continued to play games, filing appeals, shifting strategies, delaying the inevitable. He used every trick he knew to buy time, changing attorneys, challenging evidence, even offering information about other murders, but only when it served him. He hinted at dozens of victims across multiple states, leaving investigators chasing shadows. For Bundy, every confession was a negotiation. Every secret was leverage. As the years passed, public opinion hardened. The charm that once fascinated reporters had worn off. Now, he was just a killer, stalling. Even so, he found an audience. Psychologists, criminologists, journalists, all came to study him. He gave interviews, spoke in riddles, and crafted his legacy as the ultimate predator. In 1989, nearly a decade after his conviction, the games ended. The final execution date was set. The crowds outside the prison grew by the hour, some mourning, most cheering. "Burn, Bundy, burn," red signs held high in the Florida sun. On January 24th, Ted Bundy walked the final steps to the electric chair. At 7:16 a.m., the switch was flipped. He was pronounced dead just a few minutes later. Outside the prison, people erupted in celebration. Fireworks were set off. Cheers filled the air. The monster was gone, but the fear he created, the lives he destroyed, would never be forgotten. In the end, Ted Bundy wasn't just executed. He was erased. His ashes scattered in secret. No grave, no marker, no place to visit. And yet, his shadow still lingers in courtrooms, college towns, and the darkest corners of the human mind. Ted Bundy's story didn't end with his death. It only grew. He became the blueprint for a new kind of killer, one who didn't hide in the shadows, but walked among us, smiling, shaking hands, saying all the right things. He forced the world to confront an uncomfortable truth. Evil doesn't always look like a monster. Sometimes it looks like the man next door. Bundy left behind no tombstone, no shrine, but he carved his name into the darkest chapter of American crime. His victims, many still unnamed, were silenced, but their memory remains, and their stories, not his, deserve to be heard. Because in the end, Ted Bundy wasn't a genius. He wasn't special. He was a coward hiding behind charm. And justice, though slow, finally caught him. This was not just a tale of murder. It was a warning. A reminder that sometimes the scariest face is the one wearing a smile. If you made it this far, thank you. Thank you for choosing to remember the victims, for looking beyond the headlines and the hype, for staring into the darkness and refusing to look away. At Sleepless Documentaries, we tell the stories that keep you thinking long after the screen goes dark. The untold, the unforgettable, the unsettling. If you found this story compelling, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss what comes next. There are more stories to tell, more truths to uncover, and more nights without sleep. This is Sleepless Documentaries, where the shadows speak.